this tonight? What happens?
Well, so ultimately,
All right, Michael, I'll let you talk. I just want you to be exact to them and tell them what literally has happened to this council, including every one of us sitting up here, and your mayor with this judge.
sure. So the docket is ultimately over 4 years old now. So the compliance period runs from 2015 to 2025. The judges generally, in Morris County specifically, have become increasingly aggressive in managing the cases. The threat of losing immunity has been made on more than one occasion. And just to back up and explain what immunity is, while you're processing your complaint, your declaratory judgment complaint voluntarily, excuse me, you're entitled to immunity from builder's revenue litigation. So as long as you're proceeding in good faith and you have a declaratory judgment action, a developer can't come in and sue you for builder's remedy. Had you not had immunity, if it were a different universe, a developer would have been free to sue you. So when the judge threatens to strip you of immunity or discusses immunity even, with the prospect of it, against the backdrop of a docket becoming 4 or 5 years old, it's a serious threat, right? So the judge was very aggressive in managing this. It required, there was court order mediation. The judge would not let us leave the room until until we had come to terms with KRE. We had, I think, come to terms with Fair Share Center prior to that. And so, had you not settled that day, and let's say—
Just give them the number, Mike.
Let's say that the judge stripped you of immunity. The developer could have come in with a plan attached to its builder's remedy complaint of 1,000 units, 2,000 units. And ultimately, for the reason that you were stripped of immunity, it's very likely that they would have been able to prove that your zoning didn't create a realistic opportunity for your fair share. So there's a pretty good chance, in those circumstances, they'd have a good shot at being successful in a builder's remedy, and that this project would be significantly worse. On top of that, they wouldn't have had to make concessions as to where the buildings are going to be located in terms of sensitive neighbors, or height restrictions, or architectural features, or circulation that you guys were particularly fond of, or contributions for off-site improvements, or any of those concessions that you were able to get. So the risk was significantly worse, much higher density, many more units without the concessions and things you were able to achieve here.
Mike, can you explain to everybody also what has happened in other towns that have rolled the dice and actually have gone through that? Because obviously I think that's significant and they need to understand.
Sure. So most towns filed declaratory judgment actions seeking to comply voluntarily. At least one town was stripped of immunity, and I believe a dozen maybe builder's remedies were filed against them. So the town that lost immunity had roughly 10 to 12 builder's remedies filed against them, and I can tell you that the densities associated with those builder's remedies was not 7 units an acre. It was 15, 20, 25 units an acre. And even in the settlement context, like I said, we represent 70 or 80 municipalities. I've seen settlements where the densities are 20, 25, 30, 35, 40 units an acre. So when you're talking about a settlement with Fair Share, where your number is reduced based on vacant land to 138 from 786, and you're talking about a settlement with a developer that's the linchpin of that settlement with Fair Share, where your density is 7.4, I think is the final density, you did quite well relative to density and relative to exposure. In addition to that, once again, you were able to secure some off-site improvements for recreational fields for the children in the community.
Let me explain this a little simple. We're going to open it up for you to ask some questions about the process or what is on your mind. I want you all to know this. First of all, it's hard enough to please myself about what has happened here. Never mind to please 12,000 people. I could tell you this, that I'm not happy that something is going to go there, but I know that this council and our professionals did what was best for this community in the long run. No one is ever going to be happy about what happens when you've had that beautiful, in my eyes, it's probably the nicest piece of land in East Hanover. I never ever thought anything would be built there. And that's not because we weren't doing our job. It's just the way things happen. That property, some of the questions that you may ask us is why didn't we buy it? It was never offered for sale to us. And if you buy something, and we would have considered that if there was an option, most of you that are sitting here in this room would move out of the town. What it would do in taxes. With everything said about how hard we fought, that's what our job was. And we did it, and we did it wholeheartedly. Where twice we were charged with, were threatened with contempt of court. That meant that I was gonna go to jail for this. And again, I was willing to do that, but it would be a disgrace to go to jail for, if I was just representing myself, they would have threw me in that cell. I wouldn't have given in. I want you to know I look you all square in the eyes and let you know that we have a flawed system in the state of New Jersey. Our court system stinks. Our judge, I've made a solemn oath to myself that when he comes up for reappointment, counselor, where will I be?
Front and center, Mayor.
I will be opposing his reappointment. We were treated like garbage, like dirt. I dare him tell us that I can't speak to him, that I don't have the right to speak to him. I speak through my attorney. I'd like to remind him, we represent 12,000 people. He's a political appointment. We deserve the right to be heard. And with all of that said, I believe we've negotiated across the table from people. You get to know those people. I believe that the Kushners that are going to build this project are going to do a class act. That it will be, we will make sure that it's one of the best projects that ever was built for under fair share housing. Now, how can I say that? Because I know who we are and how hard I'll fight.